We are live, and I am totally not prepared, so stay with me, folks, as I get things up and running. I got to change. Hold on. What did I just do? What the hell did I just do? Am I still streaming? I think I'm still streaming. I pressed the back button. Sorry if I lost you there for a second. I think we're still good. Holy moly. Monday night, December 16th. I'm just going to try and get the old football game, which seems to be a Saints whomping, a whomper, if you will. Get this pulled up. There we go. We got some football. 20-0 Saints. Welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Wait for some of these other slow rollers to appear in the channel, but Green Bay comes away with a very close 21-13 victory over the Chicago Bears yesterday. And that last play, oh man, that was a little bit too close for comfort. I'm watching various angles. I'm talking to some people who were at the game, and it seemed like they had definitely a route or an option to get that ball into the end zone. They still had to convert on the 2-point conversion, and at that point, possibly, Green Bay goes out there and stuffs them and prevents a 2-point conversion. We end the game that way, but really close for comfort. A win's a win. 11-3. We are tied for the best record in the NFC with 2 weeks remaining in the 2019 season, and that is a good position to be in. And just like that, the Saints are up 26-0. So if you guys are just tuning in for the first time, which I imagine a lot of you guys have tuned in before, we got 6 concurrent viewers. Go ahead and fill up that chat window. I will have some discussion if you guys decide to stay silent the whole time. I got some things that I do want to talk about, things I want to cover. But as always, this night is for you to, ask some questions, give your input. How are your feelings about the Packers' victory coming over that Chicago Bears? I mean, if you look at the bigger picture here, and I always get careful about how I get into these things very early on because I know they're just going to come back sometime later in the feed, and I'll just end up repeating myself. But if you look at the big picture here, the Packers did finish 7-1 at home this season. That is compared to a 5-2-1 record at home last season. And home field, I'm looking at that specifically as being the deciding factor on whether or not this Green Bay team can be a formidable opponent to your San Francisco 49ers, to your New Orleans Saints, to your Seattle Seahawks. It'd be a huge advantage for Green Bay to be the home, the number 1 seed. And with San Francisco losing to Atlanta yesterday, it does seem as though there is a chance. I didn't even think this would be possible. I did not see San Francisco losing to Atlanta, but there is a chance on the table for Green Bay to end up with that number 1 seed, and that would be one hell of a great position to be in, considering some of the talent and how deeply talented that NFC conference is. So Scott coming in with the first comment. Adam said 13 targets and 7 catches. Is Rodgers focusing on him too much? No, the thing about this is I listened to Matt LaFleur's press conference yesterday. They asked him this kind of question specifically in regards to is Adams and Jones the recipe that you're going to be looking to implement as the rest of the season goes forward. And LaFleur was very candid with it. He says, well, absolutely. I mean, they got to figure out a way to get their playmakers the football. I look at 13 targets and 7 catches. It might not be the best performance. Rodgers had some passes once again yesterday that were a little bit off target, which could have resulted in some of those drops by Adams. But they're going to have to find, to answer your question, they're going to have to find someone else to step up in that wide receiving room if they do have a chance to go deep into the playoffs. You're not going to be able to just to focus on Adams. You're not going to be able just to focus on Jones. And quite frankly, if you look at the stat sheet, Aaron Jones did not have any receiving yards, catches, anything like that to his credit yesterday. So they were primarily using him as a running back. They used Adams as a wide receiver. Matt LaFleur doesn't seem like he's going to shy away from that being his special sauce, his special formula with 2 weeks to go in the regular season. And yes, with a playoff game that will be hanging in the balance or will be inevitable since we have clinched the playoffs. Whether or not he's focusing on him too much, I don't know. They need to find other receivers. I think Lazard is a great safety blanket. I love to see that play by Kumaro, finally for him to get out of his shell and have that pass along the sideline. That was a huge momentum play for Green Bay in that game yesterday. It just shows that's a boost of confidence for him. But then you look at a catch or a dropped opportunity by MVS on a deep ball that should have been a catchable ball. That moves him down a little bit as far as the wide receiver hierarchy and where Rodgers wants to move that ball around. So you really have to kind of consider, I look at Lazard, look at Kumaro, Allison's been super quiet. Mercedes Lewis finally had himself another catch yesterday. Graham is not a very reliable source. Tanyan kind of comes in and out as far as that's concerned. Sternberger has not had a chance to even let his wings fly. They do need to find some other receiving targets on that offense. And it's really all we're going to know a lot about this Packers team when they face the Vikings, because you're going to expect the Vikings to defend Devontae accordingly. You're going to know that they're going to have a game plan for Aaron Jones, and you're going to have to start to see some of these other players step up. Now, if we kind of dig back as history, kind of repeats itself, it was Jake Kumaro who was kind of that one-hit wonder in the playoffs a couple seasons ago in the game against the Arizona Cardinals that did eventually end in a loss. That was a sour ending. But he was one of those receivers that stepped up and came out of the blue. And then Geronimo was one of those guys that stepped up a couple seasons ago. He was that dark horse, came out of nowhere, had some great performances, and was someone that you were relying on. So you have to anticipate someone else stepping up at some point, but if they can't, it's going to be a short-lived playoff run, because you can't just rely on Adams and you can't just rely on Aaron Jones. I really love Jamal Williams. I'm fine with them feeding the ball as much as they possibly want to feed the ball. I love that effort and that fight out of him. So Snow is chiming in. It's a good year when you sweep the Bears. It's a good year when you sweep your division, and the Packers still have that as a possibility with 2 weeks left in the season. You look at that Detroit Lions team who has completely come unglued. They are not even remotely competitive in some of their games the last couple of weeks. You look at the loss of Mike Daniels, which was a huge kind of a gut punch. Maybe that's a little bit lower. A gut punch for Packers fans when we lost Mike Daniels. Well, he ends the season on the injured reserve for the Detroit Lions, and that should be a victory. It's really going to boil down to that Monday night matchup. If we can beat Minnesota, we have a solid opportunity to sweep our division and finish the season at 11-3. And we're talking about a rookie head coach. We're talking about what many people thought would be a rebuilding year. First Packers rookie head coach to make the playoffs. First rookie head coach with 11 wins in his first season. There's a lot of things positively going on in Green Bay. But at the end of the day, something just feels a little bit off. I know it's a cardinal sin to say that if you're a Packers fan, but something just seems a little bit off in Green Bay. And we got to figure out what that is, what that special sauce is. And I got to see it against the Minnesota Vikings. Junior chiming in. Hey! And you're from Las Vegas? I believe you're from Las Vegas. I made a guess last week that you were from Down Under. You're not from Down Under. You're over there in Vegas, where the Raiders will soon take home a new place. So let's go. It's been too long to be in the playoffs. It just felt good. Last night was yesterday's game, a win's a win. I'm kind of getting sick of saying that. I'm kind of, honestly, guys, a win's a win, but I don't want a win to be a win. I want a victory. I want to come out on top. I want to, stretch the shoulders out and strut my chest a little bit about a Packers victory, and we haven't had that a whole lot this season. It's great to be in the playoffs. The fact that we know that we're going to be playing some meaningful football in January, regardless of the up and downs and these ugly wins, like they've been calling it. Rodgers is calling it ugly wins. It's going to be fun to play some meaningful football in the playoffs, and we all know that when Rodgers gets an opportunity in the playoffs, that good things tend to happen. So I just love being in the opportunity. I love being in the consideration. Our season's extended by one more game, especially coming off of last year, where the season essentially ended right around mid-November when they lost to the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, there were some crazy calculations you could have made afterwards that the Packers could still make their way into the playoffs, but once they lost to the Seahawks in mid-November, it almost seemed like the season was doomed. Quite frankly, the season was doomed, and now we are talking about, with 2 weeks left to go, we got some playoff football ahead of us. So let's take a little bit of drink break. 7 concurrent viewers. Saints are destroying the Colts, which doesn't even matter in regards to win-loss for the Saints. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit. This game has no impact on the Packers whatsoever. Would a loss help? Sure, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So Snow's asking, can I see Lazard or Kumaro becoming the number 2? They have some flaws, but they're developing nicely. At this point of the season, one of those two guys are going to have to become the number 2. And if I had to put my money on anyone, I love Lazard. I think that with his height, his I guess, unknownness as far as a wide receiver, he's kind of a dark horse out there that you don't really expect a whole lot out of. Now, he does have a lot of areas to improve. He's raw. Has some growing to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I see Lazard kind of stepping up as that number 2 role. I think one of those guys, yes, I see them becoming the number 2, not because they've earned it, but because one of those two guys have to be the number 2. We just haven't been able to depend on Allison like we hoped we could have. We haven't been able to depend on MVS like we hoped we could have. And now they've kind of fallen behind into the wayside. And now we have Lazard and Kumaro. I look at it primarily as Lazard as our only guy. I mean, Kumaro, for the most part, if we look at his stats from yesterday, I got those things pulled up here somewhere. I mean, Kumaro just had his one catch for 49 yards, which is awfully impressive. Lazard had 2 catches for 14 yards, so he didn't have a big game. Allison, 2 catches for 19 yards, so a little bit better than Lazard. I'll take those 7 receptions, even though they were off of 13 targets, 103 yards for Davante Adams. If you can get him over 100 yards and score a touchdown, and then you can find a way to get Aaron Jones into the end zone a couple times throughout the game, that's a great formula for success. Now, you'd love to see Rodgers with that quarterback rating of a 40.8. You'd love to see that increase. He did not turn over the ball. He took one crucial sack late in the game, which is just mind-boggling frustration when it comes to, third down, fourth down situations, and Rodgers ending up getting sacked. But speaking of fourth down, as before we head into some of more of these comments, the Packers continue. I mean, Mason Crosby did not kick a field goal. He had 3 extra points. He had some kickoffs throughout the game, but that guy did not even get a chance to kick a field goal. The Packers had some field goal opportunities, even though it was cold in Green Bay yesterday with a chilly temperature of 13, 14 degrees. I love what they're testing out, and I'm not entirely sure if this will, go deeper against some. I mean, if we see them kind of push the envelope a little bit against Minnesota on Monday night, maybe I can start to sway my opinions that way a little bit more. But I love to see this aggressive nature. They asked Rodgers, what does it mean when you have a coach or you go for it on fourth down? And his response is that he believes in his guys. He's an aggressive nature. He wants to win, and those are the type of things that I like to see out of a gutsy rookie head coach. You have to trust the ball in 12's hand. If it's 4th and 3, 4th and 6, you have to trust that they're going to be able to do something to pick up that first down. Now, you'd like to see them do that on third down because their third down conversion rate is absolutely garbage. If we look at their third down conversion rate from yesterday, let's go to the team stats section real quick. Where were they? Let's see here. Third down efficiency. They were 5 for 15. So 33% on third down yesterday. They did hold the Bears to 9 for 20, so that's close to 50%. That's like 48% that they've held the Bears on third down efficiency. Packers did only go 1 for 3 on fourth down, but they went for it 3 times on fourth down in that game. And I like to see it. I give them kudos. I'm okay with them taking those risks. I don't know if they'll take those risks against better football teams, but I like them taking those risks. And it was a big. That was Davante Adams' touchdown. That was that 1 for 3 on fourth down that gave Adams his one and only touchdown in the game. So let's see what else we got going on. The comments are finally starting to roll in. The run the table season, they did not look good. They went to the NFC Championship game. Yeah, and they went to the NFC Championship game. They met the Atlanta Falcons, and they got themselves bamboozled. I mean, I've said this before in my live podcasts, I believe, or in these live Q&As. They entered that Atlanta Falcons game, and I remember, in a drunken fashion, giving a speech before the game, NFC Championship. We're like, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, we didn't even think that we'd be here. We were 4-6. We ran the table. Let's just enjoy the ride. Go Pack, go. And it wasn't even a game. I think by halftime it was a blowout at that point, and there was no hope for Green Bay whatsoever. So it's great to get hot. They need to get hot. They're starting to look a little bit hot. They're a first half team who looks really strong and sharp, and then that second half comes, and you're not really sure what you're getting out of them. That's the biggest thing. So I've talked about this too. The keys to winning a Super Bowl. First step, make the playoffs. Check the box. Well, check the box, Green Bay. Congratulations, you're in the playoffs. Key number 2, get hot at the right time. And I think the one thing that could stunt or stint or hurt the Packers' chances of getting hot at the right time is a loss to Minnesota. I think beating Minnesota on Monday night would create a huge momentum for Green Bay, not only for the fact that they then could solidify and have a serious contentional shot at getting that number 2 seed, if not that number 1 seed, but it shows that you can beat a quality opponent. It shows that you can beat a playoff team, because Minnesota seems to be heading to the playoffs. They kind of control their own destiny at this point, given the Rams losing terribly to the Cowboys yesterday. So you'd love to see them build up momentum up, get in. And I love looking at the feed right now for Monday Night Football. They're advertising Aaron. I mean, you got Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers spinning footballs in their hands. Whew, that is going to be a great football game. And the nice thing about it, I mean, if we're being candid right now, Green Bay does not need to win that game to still win the division. That was what the importance of was with that Bears game yesterday, was that with a victory over Chicago, they can lose to Minnesota and still win their division. But boy, oh boy, let's beat the Vikings. Let's beat the mother Vikings. Beat them. Have you ever, under the influence of alcohol, questions the teachings of the Mormon Church? Now, that's a random spitfire question. I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it's a Russian hacker like we had a couple weeks ago during the live Q&As, but no. Under the influence of alcohol, I've never questioned the teachings of the Mormon Church. So, Melanie, I'm so happy that the Packers are 11-3, that they won the game on Sunday. Go Pack, go. I agree with you. It was a great, at the end of the day, a win's a win. It was a great victory. It's nice to see them 11-3. It's really nice to see them with the tying record with both San Francisco and Seattle. Those are teams that have looked solid throughout the season, and they are right there in the hunt with all those guys. I'm realizing how stuffed up my nose sounds right now. Maybe you guys notice it. Maybe you don't. Tough to say. Trubisky had a better performance than Rodgers. This one's from Catherick. I will always love this team, but I'm scared for the playoffs. Now, Catherick, you have to be careful. Now, this is a safe space. I welcome you to pour another, because this is a safe space. I'm all for critical judgment and concerns when it comes to the Packers. I don't know, you guys are probably fans of some Facebook groups, Packer fan clubs, what you will. It's almost a cardinal sin if you are not like taking a pill and just living in happy land of the Green Bay Packers, that you're not a true Packer fan. I am a diehard Packer fan. I do this. I put this damn show together, for God's sake. It is okay to question the validity of this team, and I share your concerns. I have not seen a consistent 4-quarter game out of the Green Bay Packers through week 15. Now there's week 16 and 17 right around the corner. They have a shot to turn the switch, keep it on, turn it to 11, maybe blow out the Detroit Lions, and teach the Minnesota Vikings a little bit of a lesson as well. But this is something that we need to see, and it's something that we haven't seen. And first year head coach, new system, all that stuff. There is a learning curve that comes to being in a brand new offense under a new coordinator and a new coaching staff. There is a huge learning curve that comes with that. So I can kind of excuse some of the faults that have come with Green Bay so far this year. But when you are as a diehard Packer fan and you know what it takes to win a Super Bowl, you want to see them make a deep playoff run, and you're not seeing all of it on at all the time. There are reasons for concerns, but the greatest thing is you get hot at the right time, you make the playoffs. Once you make the playoffs, I mean, I'm looking at you, Dallas. You're one of those teams that I don't want to face in the first round of the playoffs, and thankfully we don't have to worry about facing them as long as we win out the division, at least in the first round of the playoffs. But I think they're going to give a pretty good battle to either San Francisco or Minnesota in the playoffs. I think that could be a very good matchup, and one possibly upset or surprise victory for them Dallas Cowboys. So I'm right there with you, Catherick. I'm right there with you. Don't be ashamed. Don't hide in your shell. It's okay. Express your concerns. This is what we're here for. This is what we're here to talk about. Melanie, I will always be a Packer fan, win or loss. Melanie, you have that crazy ending. I don't know if it auto types that stuff into your comments. I mean, I'm not upset about it. I have to figure out where to stop every time I read your comment, and it kind of throws me for a little bit of a loop. Lazard should be our deep threat, not MVS. Well, we don't have any deep threat. We need to find a deep threat. We need to find that white chocolate Jordy Nelson sort of player that you can just throw the ball downfield and know he's going to catch it. And the Packers have not found that weapon a whole lot this season. And it's going to be kind of an Achilles heel as far as this offense is concerned, that if you don't have a deep threat and you're solely relying on Adams as your possible deep threat or your guy that can catch a ball, quite frankly, that could be something that bites us in the ass very, very soon. But I'm right there. I mean, I just want someone to emerge as that deep threat. I don't know if I need Lazard to do it. I don't know if I need Kumaro, MVS, Allison. Someone needs to establish themselves to get deep into the secondary and come up with a catch. MVS is definitely faster than Lazard, says Junior. MVS should have caught that ball, though, and though he short-armed it. I think that was definitely a catchable pass, and it would have been a huge momentum swing very early on in that game yesterday that could have took the air right out of Chicago's sails. If the 21-3 lead didn't, mind you. Definitely something to consider. So, Big B! What's up? What's up? Tuning in, faithful Big B. He's my unofficial stats guy, my intern that doesn't get paid. Never met him in my life, but he tunes in every Monday night. He comments on my Final Thoughts videos that post on Fridays. And by the way, I apologize, guys. I mean, life is busy right now. If you're feeling stressed about the holidays, if you're feeling stressed just in general, try to throw a YouTube channel on top of it. Find some time with raising 3 kids. I'm not going to get on a tangent. I got to do better. I got to post Final Thoughts videos on Friday. But man, did the week get away from me. I had a dentist appointment. I had a meeting. I had Christmas shopping to do. I didn't get to it. I had a Christmas party to go to. And it was an open bar. And an open bar at a Christmas party is one sure way to find yourself with a good time. So that's essentially my excuses for you. But I'm definitely going to find myself doing a Final Thoughts video on this Minnesota Vikings game. It's too big of a game not to dissect in further context. And there's just so many elements as far as the final 2 weeks of the NFL season that I do want to dive into. So expect to see a Final Thoughts video on Friday. I know my subscriber count just kind of ticks up a little bit and then it goes back down, ticks back up and goes back down. I don't know what exactly causes that. It could be just that you're sick of me. But it could also be that I haven't been consistent on my Final Thoughts videos, and I apologize. So, Almighty Pack, you think we should trade for Colin Kaepernick? Absolutely not. But if we're going to be talking about trade possibilities, in Packers news this past couple days, there's a guy by the name of Odell Beckham Jr. who has been rumored, and it's a strong rumor, mind you. I mean, or a weak rumor or a loose rumor, mind you, that he wants to play for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Now, I don't really take a whole lot out of that sentiment. I think it was kind of an off-color comment that didn't really have a whole lot of validity behind it. But if there is a possibility for Green Bay to go out there and get Odell Beckham, I think it is definitely a much better option than Antonio Brown. Now, you guys, if you are faithful to the show, no, I don't get into the rumor mill a whole lot. I don't really care to dive into possibilities. There's over 1,000 various players in the NFL that we could trade for and add to our team. I just want to see the facts. I want to know legitimacies, and I want to know that there's some truth behind some of these rumors, but I don't really see a whole lot of it right now for Odell Beckham. I would love to add him to the squad. If you're looking for trade equity and the Packers would have to trade for him something, I look at you, Kevin King. You're continuing. Don't pull the Tramon Williams in the NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks. Don't make that mistake that costs us big. You have been fairly up and down enough this season where it hasn't cost us a game or hasn't lost us really anything too much outside of yardage and momentum swings. But if I'm looking at a possible trade prospect, you're looking at King as being maybe one of those guys that you could trade away with a draft pick for Odell Beckham. And then maybe, who knows, maybe we add a little bit of salary cap problems to us by adding OJB, but is it OJB? Is it OJB? I'm having a space mental. Odell Beckham. OBJ. I got it. Don't need a comment. You don't need a comment. I figured it out. My mind turned on, and I got there. So it could be some cap space problems by taking on OBJ. But yes, I see all your comments. You're joking. But it's a great segue. If we're going to be talking about trades, this is something that I want to bring up at some point tonight. We're not going to be trading for Colin Kaepernick, but we could possibly be in the rumor mill all offseason about trading for Odell Beckham Jr. So no one runs routes like Nelson on this team. No one does run routes. Well, Adams is a close comparison to someone that runs routes, but his routes are not, quick cuts and go. They're mainly like little shifty McShifterton. That's a deep NFL term right there. Devontae Adams is one of the best route runners in the league, arguably one of the, if not the best route runner in the game. So he's able to find himself some space and get open, but he's not the type of route runner you're gonna rely on or want to throw deep balls to on a consistent basis. So I'm not disagreeing with you. We don't have anybody like Jordy Nelson there. We have some speed. You look at MVS's speed, but you don't really have anybody on that deep threat whatsoever. Big B is pointing out that I'm not getting paid nothing, and that's just fine with me. It's more of I looked at the last 3 weeks of these games. You look at the Giants and the Redskins and the struggling Bears that, they were coming into the game winning 4 of their last 5. I mean, what do you really talk about in those games? I mean, the Packers, I look at my final thought segments in my 3 keys to victory segments in my final thoughts, and I'm hitting the exact same points. I mean, the Packers know what their weaknesses are. At least I have a pretty strong feeling I know what the Packers' weaknesses are. Time of possession, it's huge. Win the time of possession battle. They have to win the turnover battle. The team that turnovers the ball more typically ends up on the losing side of the game. You look at stopping the run. It's been a huge weakness for the Packers, but if they can stop the run, they usually give themselves an advantage because that opens up the pass rush. We have some great pass rushers. You look at Zadarius and Preston Smith, who were pretty quiet yesterday, and that brings me to remind me to kind of circle back to Rashawn Gary and his performance. But the Packers kind of know what they struggle with and what their weaknesses are. And then so to kind of go into these 3 keys to victory, I keep beating a dead horse. When we look at this Minnesota Vikings game, it's going to be, stop the run. You're going to have Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook is struggling with some injuries. You're going to want to put pressure on Kirk Cousins. And then you're going to probably want to establish the time of possession, because the more that you can keep the Minnesota Vikings off the field, the more refreshed that defense will be. It kind of goes round and round. It's cyclical. I got to figure out. I'm already tweaking with ideas of what I want to do for season 2 when it comes to these final thoughts videos and my 3 keys to victories. But by week 15, week 16 of the NFL season, the Packers know what they need to do, and I think we all know what the Packers need to do. At least I'm fairly confident I know what the Packers need to do. They just have to go out there and do it, and I think that really when we're looking at the biggest thing is just consistency. Put a 4-quarter game together and see what the results turn out to be. That's going to be absolutely crucial as we head into the final stretch here. So, joking, yes, Odell would be a great addition if we had the chance to get him, and I would get rid of Graham and Blake and draft a middle linebacker or sign one free agent. So for all you Blake Martinez haters out there in the group, I agree. If we get rid of Graham, that's going to open up a lot of salary cap, at least with that one position. Blake Martinez left the game yesterday for a brief moment. Now, remember, this is a guy that leads the NFL in tackles still, even though he's had a little bit of a down year, in my opinion. He leads the team in tackles. Obviously, it goes hand in hand. When he left the game yesterday and Oren Burks came on the field, the announcer's like, well, Oren Burks primarily doesn't play a whole lot of defense. He plays special teams. Well, that's a middle linebacker, outside linebacker type of player what do you mean he doesn't play defense? I think you guys take Blake Martinez for granted. Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend him for too much longer, but I was really curious if he was going to miss some extensive time yesterday on the sideline. what would you guys realize we'd be missing without Blake Martinez being there in our second or in our backfield, our defensive backfield? He's one hell of a player. He goes out there, he tackles, he's a leader, he play calls, he's the quarterback of that defense. I have a lot of faith in Blake Martinez. He does not deserve a max contract by any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely has earned himself an opportunity to spend a couple more seasons in Green Bay. And whether or not you compare him to AJ Hawk with the type of caliber of player that he is, I don't really care at this point. I'm not on that bandwagon or mindset that we should be getting rid of Blake Martinez. I do think we should get rid of Kevin King though. Burn him! Get him away! We don't need him on the team anymore. No more Kevin King. Those are my personal thoughts. He can go. And here's the tricky part. This one, hold on. This is where I'm going to bite myself. Kevin King has a ceiling. His ceiling is pretty high. Kevin King, once the Packers get rid of him, I have little doubt that he's going to go on to have a very successful NFL career. And that's going to sting so much to see him go and succeed on a different football team. I don't know what it is. But I feel like he has the potential, and he just continually lets me down. And I don't know if that's just being part of the Packers defense or not. Really tough to say, but I would not be surprised. Kind of like a Demarius Randall. No. Is that who I'm thinking of? Demarius Randall? It's kind of a Demarius Randall situation. I'm not even going to compare Micah Hyde. We should have never let Micah Hyde go. I'm not going to compare Casey Hayward. We should have never let those guys go. Those were two very good defensive backs that we had that we just didn't want to re-sign. Ted Thompson did not want to re-sign. But I look at Demarius Randall, who was a little bit of a locker room problem from times to times. You look at Josh Jones, locker room problem, too arrogant. I don't know where I'm going with this. I lost my train of thought. Next question. Do you think our defense's mentality to bend, not break is sustainable? It's not going to be sustainable whatsoever once we face some of these top tier teams. I mean, if you want to talk about a bend but not break mentality, how that works, it's very similar to a floodgate, right? So it can only hold so much until it eventually gives way. That's that bend, not break mentality. And we saw it get away from the Packers against the San Francisco 49ers just a couple of weeks ago. And yes, we need to maybe just kind of throw that game behind us. Rodgers seems to be fairly confident that when the rematch occurs, the Packers will be ready this time. And the Packers have an opportunity to play that game at home, which would be wondrous in so many different reasons. But once it breaks, it breaks for good. I mean, there's no closing it, there's no repairing it, and it can get away from you really quick. So they've been able to sustain this. They've been able to get themselves off to some fast starts. They've been able to get themselves off to some quick early leads. And the kind of bending has been able to sustain. But if the offense does stutter early in the game and then they're not able to stop the opponent and they find themselves in a little bit of a hole and then the panic mode starts to set in, that's one thing that Green Bay has not had a lot of opportunity to play with having a successful season. There's not a lot of experience to draw upon. You look at the Eagles game, that was a back and forth shootout. They did find themselves in certain drives in that game where they had to, kind of put something together to make a game out of it, to push the envelope, to go the extra yard and make it a game and possibly get yourself a victory. But you look at the Chargers game, well, that was a bend and break moment where it broke and they couldn't find themselves getting back into that game. There wasn't any opportunity once it broke. You look at that San Francisco 49ers game, it broke and there was no getting back into it. There was no life in the late third quarter, fourth quarter for a potential comeback. Regardless of how great my Packers' dreams and hopes are, they had no chance of getting back into those two games. So they've been lucky this season. They haven't had to play from behind. They've been able to get out quick starts. That is their formula for success, and it could be a very dangerous thing if we play a formidable opponent like Seattle or like the Saints, New Orleans Saints, and find ourselves in a hole early on. That's going to be the true answer. You almost, just for shits and giggles, you almost hope maybe that the Vikings jump out to a 7-0, 10-0 lead on Green Bay and see if they can kind of climb that mountain, get over that hurdle, build some confidence that they've done it before, that they can do it in case it does come back up in the playoffs. I think those are keys that they need to work on. There's still a lot for this team to work on. The clock is ticking. There's 2 weeks left. and the playoffs are just around the corner. So it's definitely not going to sustain itself. But let's talk about my sweater, because Graham25, thank you for tuning in. I've been waiting. This is a Christmas sweater. This is probably one of my favorite things to wear. It's very warm. I don't get paid to sell these. I don't even know if you can buy them. But the very first video that I recorded was my season predictions video. So the first ever Portland Packers podcast video. Go back, check it out, like it, comment, do what you will. See if I'm right with any of my predictions. I'm right with some of them. But that was the last time I wore this video, this sweater on these videos, and I've been waiting for the Christmas holiday season. I mean, Christmas is a little over a week away, so if you haven't gotten your shopping done, go do it. I do have one ugly sweater that I will pull out for Friday's Final Thoughts video. It's the Packers sweater, though, so is it really ugly? I feel like I should, if you want to call it an ugly sweater, it's got to be a Bears or a Vikings one. The patterns don't mean a whole lot, but thanks for the kudos on the sweater. We're not here to talk about my wardrobe, at least not any longer. Catherine, how mad would you have been if Chicago pulled off the Chicago Miracle? LOL. Well, the Chicago Miracle did not happen. I don't know. Mad? Yeah, sure. I mean, they're up 21-3, and now we're looking at no time left on the clock, and Chicago is going for a 2-point conversion to tie the game and go into overtime. I wanted nothing to do with overtime yesterday, quite frankly. I'm so glad we didn't hit that point. It would have been bad news Bears, no pun intended, had we hit that point, because Chicago owned the momentum in that game ever since that late third quarter, that fourth quarter opportunity. If you look at, let's pull this up here real quick. So, sing to myself, it will kill some time. So after scoring their final touchdown at the time up 21-3, Packers' best drive would account for 13 yards afterwards. In fact, taken together, the Packers moved the ball 9 total yards in their final 5 offensive drives, including 4 consecutive 3-and-outs. So this is what I mean. That switch flips at some point in that second half. It's almost inevitable. We've seen it countless times this season, and it would behoove me to think that that's not a fear or a concern for me as we head into the playoffs. 4 consecutive 3-and-outs is a dangerous thing that's not going to win yourself a whole lot of football games in the playoffs. So if they would have gone into overtime, I do think that Chicago finds a way to come away with that victory. Mainly because we don't have that deep threat. We don't have that miracle man on our offense. You can say it's Aaron Rodgers if you want to, but we don't have, like, Jordy Nelson was always that guy. Randall Cobb was that guy from time to time. We haven't really seen Adams be that guy a whole lot. You haven't seen Aaron Jones be that guy a whole lot. There's just no one that's really solidified themselves. And you question, I mean, Jared Cook came out of nowhere very late in his only season in Green Bay, and then he came out to be that guy against Dallas. We haven't seen anybody in that tight end room kind of step out, jump off the film. I like Mercedes Lewis. I wish they would throw the ball to him more. I'm surprised they're not implementing more of these younger tight ends into the play calling more and more, especially with the lack of production by Jimmy Graham. It's been absolutely frustrating. If you look at Jimmy Graham's stats from yesterday, which I will do for you because I am a nice guy like that, Jimmy Graham had 1 reception for 0 yards and 4 targets. I mean, that is not going to cut it. Not going to cut it. MVS had just his 1 target for 0 yards, 0 receptions. Robert Tonyan, 2 targets, 1 for 5. Mercedes Lewis, 1 target. He caught it for 6 yards. They gotta dig into this tight end pool. There is talent in that tight end pool, and we have to start preparing for a future without Jimmy Graham. We got to start to find some more weapons. You got 2 weeks left. Find some more weapons. Melanie likes my sweater as well, so appreciate that, Melanie. Big B Dean needs to be moved to wide receiver. He had more catches than MVS, and there's my stat guy. I should have got to your comment way earlier, but yeah, hell of a catch. And that was what was at that point. When did that take place? Come on, stat guy. Go ahead and throw it out there if you want to. When that interception took place, it felt like, okay, Green Bay has great field position. They'll at least get a field goal out of this possession. They, if not, score a touchdown and kind of put the dagger into the game, and we can all go away feeling really good and happy, and we dominated the Bears sort of type of feeling, which just wasn't the case. But that's where Rodgers took that critical sack that pushed him out of field goal position. I got a freaking ad for Home Depot playing right now for some reason. Pushed him out of field goal position and was just absolutely frustrating. Killed us to an extent. But yeah, great catch by Dean Lowry. His one and only catch, I believe the stat was from the game yesterday. Graham, assuming we win out and keep the number 2 seed, Saints will be the 3rd seed. How do you see New Orleans coming into Green Bay, assuming they advance? So real quick, I'm going to do what I like to do. There's always, I see all these conversations about, how come the records are the same, but the Packers are here and yada, yada, yada. I'd like to break it down a little bit, and I like to bring up the playoff machine. It's that time of the night. Once again, I'm going to bring up the playoff machine because I really want to point out some key facts for you guys real quick. So we're going to click this boy on right here. We're going to go here, and we're going to go here. So I'm assuming you guys can see what I'm seeing. So let's give the Saints the win right here. We're going to go to week 16. So the biggest thing that I want you guys to realize, let's do the win and out type of scenario. So if we win against the Vikings, we win against the Lions. We finish the season 13-3. That is a solid record to go on. So let's look at our main competition. We look at this matchup against San Francisco and the Rams. With the way that the dud really kind of was set yesterday as far as the Rams' performance against the Cowboys, you have to think that San Francisco will take care of business. They're coming off of a loss. You look at Seattle down here. They're playing the Cardinals. You got to figure that Seattle's going to find themselves winning over the Cardinals, and then really anyone else in our division. Probably Saints beat up on the Titans, and that really kind of sets it for what we see in our division. Outside of that, we move to week 17. So the biggest matchups here, I don't think the Carolina Panthers, I did for the longest time, I thought the Carolina Panthers would be a formidable opponent against the New Orleans Saints, and I mean, anything can happen, but quite frankly, this game doesn't really matter a whole lot. Whether the Saints win, we're going to give it to the Saints. We're going to say that those Saints win out their season as well. They finished 13-3. They own, or they do not own the tiebreaker over Green Bay, as you'll see. But the biggest thing is that if we talk about this matchup right here, so that's going to really be what it boils down to. We're going to give the Vikings the win over the Bears. They solidify themselves a place in the playoffs. And Dallas, I keep forgetting about Dallas. You're kind of that dark horse. I don't even care. We'll give the Eagles. I'm going to take Dallas in the playoffs regardless. So this is that matchup. This is the matchup that we look at. And we talk about first seed possibilities. If Seattle wins, Seattle gets the first seed. We get bumped down into the second seed. If San Francisco wins, they take the first seed. Green Bay moves down the second seed. So where that possibility lies for Green Bay to come away with a first seed in the NFC, of course, you have to win out. That's the only way they can do it, is to win out. But you're going to have to see one of these teams, you're going to have to see either Seattle or San Francisco lose this upcoming week. So if San Francisco loses to the Rams, at that point, we have to cheer for San Francisco to beat the Seahawks, because the Seahawks own the tiebreaker over Green Bay. So if the San Francisco 49ers lose in week 16 and then they win in week 17, Green Bay gets the first seed. On the flip side, if San Francisco wins and Seattle loses to the Cardinals, but then Seattle beats San Francisco at home, it's the exact same results. Green Bay takes away that first seed. So we need one of these two teams, either San Francisco or Seattle, to lose this weekend, and then we need to cheer for them to win in the final week. Now, the beautiful scenario that nobody likes to talk about, or maybe the long shot scenario, is that if both these teams lose, if Seattle and San Francisco both lose this weekend, the Packers then control their own destiny as far as that first seed, because at that point, it doesn't matter whether Seattle wins that final game or San Francisco wins that final game. Either way, Green Bay ends up with the first seed. And when we're talking about that huge edge that Green Bay can have in the playoffs, Rodgers talked about this a number of seasons ago. We brought up that Atlanta matchup not too long ago, as far as they ran the table, they went into Atlanta. Those are the type of games that Green Bay wanted to play at home, and it was a huge disadvantage for them not to play at home. So when you're talking about a team that went 7-1 throughout the regular season, the burps come up. A team that went 7-1 throughout the regular season, their only loss came to the Philadelphia Eagles in a hard fought match that possibly there was pass interference. I'm not going to get into that. But that's going to be the difference maker. If Green Bay can end up with the 1 seed, then they legitimately also have a chance to make a deep playoff run. They have then 2 home games that they could play before a trip to the Super Bowl. So it would be just an absolute miracle if one of these 2 teams, either Seattle or San Francisco, could lose. It would be just a sweet iced tea if both of those teams end up moving or losing this weekend. But those are some things that we, as you're starting to kind of play around with those playoff scenarios, we talk about the Saints to an extent. I mean, Saints can do what the Saints want to do. Yes, now they can take the 1 seed away from Green Bay. I will go back to this chart because tonight's game didn't matter whether or not the Saints won. I think we all kind of predicted the Saints to win anyway. I am trying to find my OBS. There it is. So we kind of predicted that the Saints would win anyway. The biggest thing is if Green Bay does end up losing to Minnesota, then we need the Saints at that point to lose to Carolina. And that's the biggest game right there because we lost to Carolina, and that's really only the head-to-head matchup that we can consider at this point between the Saints and Green Bay is that they both played the Carolina Panthers. So that boils down to that game. You'll notice if I go back to Week 16 and we give the win to the Titans, it still doesn't matter. The Packers still find themselves in that 3rd seed no matter what. They don't bump themselves up whatsoever. So when it looks at the last 2 weeks, they would have to lose to Carolina. But hopefully, Green Bay they control their destiny at this point. They just have to keep winning out, find themselves in the playoffs, and find themselves with some home field advantage in the playoffs and make themselves a deep playoff run. So let's get back to some of these comments. Assume we went out. I think that's the one that we just talked about. Martinez is good. His only downfall is his coverage. Yeah, he's not a coverage back. He's a tackler. He's a tackler. What if we use Kevin King as a 3rd cornerback since Tremont is getting older? I would love to see more out of Tremont in the Packers' defensive scheme, but I understand why they're limiting or cutting his playing time as much as they do. Now, real quick, before we go from that point in the comments, I just have to do a shout-out to King Smooth YT. You made it. Thank you, man. You're one of the guys that comments on my live Q&A videos after they've already posted. And you've left me some great comments and feedback. I appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed, so you get yourself a shout-out. Thank you for tuning in tonight and being part of this. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you get to experience it and take part in it as well. So I would start Sullivan over King. It's a risky thing to do. I mean, it's a risky thing to do. Yeah, it's worth a shot. I think if we play the Detroit Lions, we should experiment a little bit with what we want to do with Kevin King. I don't think you need to do it against the Vikings. I think you still have to put King out there. He's proven to be the better cornerback out of what we have in that room. But maybe experiment a little bit more. Like I said 2 weeks ago when we played the Washington Redskins and Kevin King was out, let's finally see what this defense can do without Kevin King in there, and they actually held up pretty good. I liked what I saw out of Tramon Williams in that game, and Sullivan had himself a pretty good game too. He had such a good game where my dad asked me, who is that guy and how long has he been on our team? And I said, well, that guy has been on our team pretty much the whole season, if not the whole season. So shame on you for not noticing that. And B, everybody in my Packers podcast community talks about him all the time. So little fun fact for you. I'm not really sure where I'm going with that whatsoever. The movement of Z on the D-line is helping Kenny. He had a great game. Kenny Clark did have himself a great game. He had himself a sack. I think he was rated as the top defensive player or performer for the Packers yesterday against the Chicago Bears. It was really good to see him start to get himself going. That's the type of player and type of guy you need to see excel as the final weeks come to an end and as we approach the playoffs. He's going to be a huge piece and a huge X factor along that defensive line, and his success is going to be directly linked to the Packers' success. Are you scared of the 49ers? This question comes in from, I believe it's Anant. I am scared of the San Francisco 49ers. They had themselves a down game yesterday. I think we get a little bit of, was it long-term memory loss and maybe short-term euphoria. That game, Atlanta's been playing fairly decent. They've been upsetting teams a couple times throughout the season. And look at the Saints game, that they're up 34-0 right now. They upsetted the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. I think San Francisco came off of a 3-game stretch against Green Bay, Baltimore, and the Saints. They found themselves going 2 of 3 in those matchups, and even that Baltimore game came down to the final seconds. That was just kind of writing on the wall. They took their foot off the gas. Atlanta upset them. That is still the team that I consider one of the better teams, if not the best team in the NFC. I kind of go back and forth between them and the Saints as far as the best team in the NFC. But yeah, I'm scared of them. I'm scared because the Packers came off of a bye week. They had time to prepare. They were rested. They got manhandled in San Francisco. It wasn't even a competition. It's left a sour taste in my mouth. So yes, I am still scared of the 49ers, and playing the 49ers in Green Bay will go a long ways. Will go a very long ways. Adams dropped many balls. Yes, Adams did drop a lot of balls throughout the game. Gmo is dropping many balls. We're dropping balls left and right. I feel like this is turning into the SNL skit with the sweaty balls. I have my sweater on. All I need to do is get the right chocolates. If you guys are too young to know where I'm even referencing, go ahead and search afterwards. Not right now because you're watching this. Go ahead and search Sweaty Balls and an SNL skit. It's Alec Baldwin. Great laughs. Great laughs if you want yourself some great Christmas. It's the time of the year, too. So it's a great time of the year. What's the point of playing soft zone on 3rd and short? Is there a strategic purpose? I sometimes wish I could read Pettin's mind. Catherick, you're just shooting off great questions tonight. I don't know what the point of playing soft zone coverage is. It's supposed to confuse younger quarterbacks, maybe less intelligent quarterbacks. That might not be the right words, because you can have a lot of motion in your secondary and kind of catch that quarterback off guard. But what we're seeing is this hasn't been. I'm going to maybe dive into this a little bit more for my final thoughts video, but this hasn't been like a one-off thing where they've just thrown some zone defense out there, but they've been mainly playing man. They've really depended on that zone defense a lot so far this year. Whether that's a lack in confidence in what he has in his secondary, that's left to be, decided. But I'm right there with you. I would love to see more blitzes. Maybe even design blitzes from Mike Pettin and that defense. You got to get pressure on that quarterback. Got to kind of stuff that run more. I'm not a big fan of playing soft zone. I'm not a fan of any sort of zone, at least on a consistent basis. And it's been something that's been leading to my hair loss. If you haven't noticed over the last couple of weeks, this receding hairline is just going. And I don't know whether it's the new child or the stress of the holidays. Maybe because I've been sick for what feels like a month. But yeah, to get rid of the zone, 100%. Alexander tuning in. Arizona is a good team with a losing record at this point. I mean, I agree. It's very possible. It's possible that Arizona, it's a division matchup. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals is a lot like the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. They tend to play them tough. You don't really know what team's going to show up. You can't take them for granted. You're kind of maybe thinking that we're going to be playing the Niners next week. Let's just kind of get through this game and prepare for our final matchup, because the winner of the final week of the season will win the NFC West, will have home field advantage for at least one game, if not multiple games in the playoffs. So sure, I mean, Cardinals could definitely upset the Seahawks, but you have to look at the Rams being the more formidable opponent against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not sure San Francisco will find themselves losing back-to-back games. They haven't done it all season, and I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call for them to fall to the Atlanta Falcons. But both of those matchups will be some must-watch football. Heck, I thought the Chargers had a chance at some point yesterday until the end of the second half, when that completely went out the window with the bathwater. The baby was with it as well. That got away from them fast when Minnesota scored a touchdown at the end of the first half, and they were never able to come back from that whatsoever. Let's see here. Fourth quarter, 6:41 left, 2-4 at the 46-yard line. Dean's big catch. So yeah, there was 6 minutes and 41 seconds left. Thank you, Big B. Once again, my stats guy. 6:41 left in the fourth quarter. That was the shot. That was a chance to place the dagger. Larry McCarron says it best. Place the dagger. There is your dagger. And they just couldn't find a way to capitalize. And to kind of maybe curtsy off that a little bit, would be that Green Bay got the ball left at the end of the game, and all they needed to do was get a first down, and they couldn't, keep the defense off the field. They couldn't pick up that first down. Now, I do really like, some people might have some frustration with that final third down call where Rodgers rolled out. I really actually thought that was a great play call at that time. I thought it opened the door for opportunity, right? So you have the opportunity where if Rodgers rolls out, he can either A, run for the first down, B, he sees a receiver and can make a pass to a wide open receiver and get the first down that route. But if there's nothing that develops with it, if the defense plays it good, you can still run the ball and keep the clock running. I thought that was a great heads up call by Matt LaFleur very late in the game. Now, yes, you'd love to see him pick up the first down and end the game. Then you don't have that potential Chicago miracle, as it was called earlier, kind of possibly bite you in the ass. But I like the play call. I wish it would have obviously turned out a little bit better. Green Bay has a 9% chance to be the number 1 seed. Well, you know what I say about that? Pish posh. Pish posh. I don't really care. I don't really care if they have a 9. I don't know if that's a good thing. I feel like 9% chance of taking the first seed is a pretty good odds. But I broke it down for you. All they have to do is win. And then some other things have to happen too. I already broke it down for you. King Smooth says, we got the Vikings. Appreciate it, bro. I'm driving home from work. You're listening to me on your drive home, so be careful out there on the roads. By this point, by the time I finally got to your comment, hopefully you did not get yourself into an accident. You're home and safe and sound. But you're confident that we got the Vikings, and I will say this, the closer and closer, you'll go back to my first video where I was wearing this lovely cardigan. I didn't have Green Bay winning at US Bank Stadium. The Packers have yet to win at US Bank Stadium. These are things I will get into on a later video. Kirk Cousins 0-8 at home. 0-8. I wish he was 0-8 at home. 0-8 on Monday Night Football. There's a lot of elements. There's a lot of statistics that you can dive into. So if we're going to talk about statistics for that Monday Night Football game, we're talking about a 9% chance that they end up with the 1 seed. At the end of the day, you can't predict it. We watch football. We love the game, and that's why we tune in, and that's exactly why I think the Packers have a legitimate shot at getting that number 1 seed. I think had San Francisco won yesterday, I would have been like, nope, 2 seed it is. Just win out and be happy with it. But San Francisco definitely opened up the door a little bit by losing to the Atlanta Falcons. So we are close to 1 hour into the program. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in Monday night. Live Q&A, Portland Packers podcast. Give away this canvas if you are just clicking across this video. If you find yourself to be a Packers fan, go ahead and subscribe to the content. Like the video. I got 8 likes so far. I got 15 concurrent viewers, so I'm not sure what you guys need from me at this point. But I'll tell you this. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I will give away the canvas, and you can take that and do whatever you'd like with it, because I'm going to find something else to put behind me on this wall. But yeah, a little bit of an hour in. I'm going to take a little bit of a drink break. I've been talking straight for 58 minutes, and that's coming off of a day where I've talked a lot. So let's loosen up the vocal cords a little bit. Green Bay was behind, but the game at San Francisco until the end of the third quarter. I'm not really sure, T-Rock. I'm trying to decipher your comment right there. It's not uncommon for teams to take a shot on 3rd and short, expecting single high man in tight zone. I think that's something that Green Bay has done a lot of, even in the Mike McCarthy era. We've seen it a handful of times throughout the season. I think Aaron Rodgers in particular likes to take those deep shots on 3rd down. And yesterday we got to see them take it on 4th down, take that deep shot. So I'm not really sure. So Green Bay was in the game at San Francisco until the end of the third quarter. Okay, so Green Bay was behind, but in the game at San Francisco until the third quarter. I don't really know. I didn't see a whole lot that I loved out of Green Bay. Maybe they kept it close, but like I said, that those floodgates opened and San Francisco ran, and they ran so far away, they had to get away. They had to get away. Dun, 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 dun. When are we going to start Kumaro? He puts in work every time he's on the field. Now, this goes back to a comment that Alexander had 2 comments above you. So, King Smooth, when are we starting Kumaro? Alexander says, start Kumaro. It seems like Kumaro finds himself. Now, the one thing that this stat sheet doesn't come in, and maybe Big B, who's casually watching the background, maybe can find some more stats. I don't know where you're going to find these, but as far as playing time percentage, go out there and Google it. I don't have time to do it right now, but Kumaro only did have 1 reception, 49 yards, 1 target in the game, but I did see his number out there on the field a lot throughout the game, so whether you want to call him an official starter or not, you look at that huddle, and when that huddle breaks, I do see a lot of Kumaro out there on the field. Now, the biggest thing is Rodgers has to get him the ball, and the other thing to go along with that is Kumaro has to find himself open. So we'll see how this kind of unfolds. I'm not against Kumaro being a starter, quote unquote. I think he has the talent, and we definitely need someone else to step up outside of Adams. But he's definitely, I feel like he's out there on the field a lot for the Green Bay Packers. He just hasn't got a whole lot of opportunity up to this point in the season. What's up? Finally caught a live stream. Thanks, Damian Wards, for tuning in. I will read your comment next. YT for real. Every time he gets an opportunity, he produces. So that was your comment. I read it. And then you had a message retracted, so I'm not really sure what you're saying down below. But I appreciate you tuning in. Maybe it's hereditary for hair loss. Many guys lose their hair in the 30s. So you had to comment on that. Not anything else Packer related that you want to talk about tonight, Alexander. You had to go straight for... You had to take it. I mean, I guess I put it out there as far as the receding hairline, so you get what you deserve. But I'm going to move on. So Packers and Vikings game is going to be a good game. That's what I think. Can't wait to watch that game. Go Pack and go Melanie. It's really funny. If you read that comment with the way that it's spread out in my window, it says go Pack and go Melanie. I know what you intended to say, but I like it much better than that. I might use it as my new mantra. Go Pack and go Melanie. I love it. Lewis has a higher snap count than Graham. Portnoy versus Raw versus Monday Night Football. The Monday Night Wars are on. Well, if you're watching this Monday Night Football game, you're trying to decide what would be more entertaining. Well, now I just sound cocky, but it's 34 to now 6. So hopefully, I mean, there's not a whole lot you should have invested in that Monday Night Football game. But yeah, Raw, that's a serious contender. That is a serious contender. But now SmackDown moved down to Friday nights. So Coom had 19% snap. Is that legit? This microphone isn't even turned on during these videos. But you're telling me that Kumaro had only 90% of the snaps with the offense on Sunday? That seems weird to me. I feel like I was seeing his number out there all the time. Anant, if I'm pronouncing that right, you still haven't corrected me, so you can either just comment yes or no. What am I drinking? Well, tonight I am back to the Red Stag on ice. I gotta find myself. I mean, the holidays, the budgets can get a little bit tight with Christmas gifts and whatnot. I gotta get myself a pear cognac as we head into the playoffs. I mean, I can't be dilly-dallying around with this cheap whiskey and this cheap liquor. It's gonna be game time very soon. So that's what we will dive ourselves into. But 102, an hour and 2 minutes. Let's just wrap up with the final comments of the night. So I mean, the viewers are slowly starting to dwindle as far as except for you guys who are extremely faithful to the podcast. So I bet Jordy has been spoken to and think Jordy declined. Happy baling hay, retires with good health. I'm even struggling to read comments at this point. Yeah, Jordy's happy. If he wanted to come back to Green Bay, I'm sure they would have welcomed him back with open arms. If Rodgers would have made that phone call, even though he denied it, he would have came back to Green Bay. At this point in the season, it's definitely not going to happen. Do you think? Okay, so this one's from King Smooth. I'll answer 2 more questions if there's 2 more questions after this next one, and then we will wrap up the video. So King Smooth, do you think LaFleur is the future of Green Bay? It's really too early to tell, and that's hard for me to say. I was a big Matt LaFleur fan. I was a huge Matt LaFleur advocate. I loved. When the coaching carousel was in just full-on go time, they were looking at 7 to 10 different coaches that they were interviewing, and the odds were saying that Mike Daniels was going to be the guy to come in and coach Rodgers. He's the only guy that could coach an MVP veteran quarterback. I was not on that bandwagon whatsoever. I caught up on this Matt LaFleur fella, and I love the signing. I love what he brings. I love that young culture. I love seeing him and Rodgers on the sideline. I think his success, I think he will have a lot of success in Green Bay. I think just the fact that he was able to go out into his rookie season, he's got 11 wins so far. He's the first rookie coach to make the playoffs. for the Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of great things. He's definitely the future. I think he is the guy that you can start to build a team around. I'm really excited to see how they give him more responsibility. Now, remember, when he got brought into Green Bay, it's kind of a three-man band as far as Gutekunst and Mark Murphy and LaFleur as far as what it means to draft players or even free agent acquisitions. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see if LaFleur gets more input and maybe starts to build this team a little bit more and get some of those qualities that Mike McCarthy had throughout his career. Now, I don't think that's something that happens next season, maybe a little bit next season. I don't know if it's something that happens in year 3, but they can find themselves definitely jumping out to some strong seasons if they make a deep playoff run. If they win themselves a Super Bowl, I think Matt LaFleur starts to get the reins to this organization and can take over really quick. And they're going to name a street after him, and he will definitely be the future in Green Bay. He's very young. He can spend a long time in Green Bay. I hope he turns into just an old man coaching in Green Bay 10 to 15 years down the road. But yeah, I love what I've seen out of LaFleur. I love the hire. So happy for the guy. I mean, just let's just lay it out there. Just from a human standpoint, if you take sports out of it, he's a good guy. I'm happy for him. Awesome job. I want to see him succeed, and I know a lot of guys in that locker room want to see him succeed as well. I'll try to make it earlier to the next stream. Thanks, Damien, for tuning in. You think Rodgers is problem with offense? I don't think Rodgers is the problem with the offense whatsoever. I will never jump on that bandwagon. I won't turn that dial. It's absolute blasphemy for anyone to think, regardless of his decline and some missed throws and whatnot. Monday. Tune in Monday night against the Vikings. Rodgers will show up when the game matters. I have no doubt about it. I don't need him to be Mr. Consistency every single week like he was throughout the younger years of his career. I just need him to show up when it matters. I need him to come away with victories. It's been ugly wins. They're 11-3. They are tied for the best record in the NFC. Rodgers is definitely not the problem. He can play better. I'm not going to deny that. He's missed some throws. He's overthrown some balls. He's thrown them short. Whatever you want to say. He's taken sacks when he probably should have thrown them away. He's made mistakes. But Rodgers is not the problem. He will definitely... quarterbacks are a dime a dozen in this league, and they are the success for Super Bowl winning teams. They are the X factor for Super Bowl winning teams. I'm not even going to dive into that any further. I'll leave it at that. Rodgers is not the problem. Let's move on. Next question, not a question, but a personal belief. Next year, 11-5 team will be better than this year's 12-4, 13-3 team. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there. I don't disagree with you really at all. I do think next year's team will be better than this team. You have to take what you've gotten so far this season. It's unheard of. I mean, we're talking about Packers 100 years, Packers franchise history. No rookie coach has gotten to 11 wins in their first season. No rookie coach has made the playoffs. They've had a lot of successes, and I don't mean to maybe underscore what lies ahead of us, but we have to be, regardless of whether you wanted it or not. I don't know if Green Bay was supposed to be an 11-3 team with 2 weeks to go in the season. They've surprised a lot of people. That organization is absolutely buzzing. Take another off season and all that crap that goes with it. Let's go win a Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving up on the season, but I do see next year's team coming out even stronger. And regardless of what the results are this year, next year's team is going to be a real team to kind of be. I mean, they're not going to be tied for first in the NFC with the Saints and the 49ers and the Seahawks and be the worst team out of those four teams. They will be a team to contend with, and they will get a lot of respect in the NFL. Go Pack, go. Have a good evening. It was nice listening to your broadcast tonight. Melanie, go Pack, go Melanie. Thank you again for tuning in, Melanie. Appreciate it 100%. We need to play off Rodgers on Monday. We do need to play off Rodgers on Monday, and I believe we will see a playoff Rodgers on Monday. T-Rock agrees, and with that, it's 10:08. I've been talking for an hour and 8 minutes. Let's shut this thing down. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and participating once again on this Monday Night Live stream. I went from 8 likes to 12 likes. I did not gain any more subscribers, but I'm okay with that. I appreciate the ones that I have. I do not take that for granted. I will continue to improve this channel, make this channel better. I will do a final thoughts video for you guys on Friday because there's one hell of an NFC North battle that's about to go down in Minnesota on Monday night. So with that, Saints look like they're going to come away with a 34-7 victory. Appreciate all the love and respect. Go Pack, go. In the playoffs, what are some of my final thoughts? Look at me. In the playoffs, swept the Bears, 7-1 on the road. Rashawn Gary looked good. I didn't even get into that. Maybe I'll get into that on Friday. Rashawn Gary had himself a game yesterday. I'm going to tease you with that one. My drink's gone. Just shut off the video. Let's just shut it off. Until next time, guys, I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.